Welcome to episode 89 of New Slang. I am music journalist Thomas Mooney, your host, and on this episode, I am joined by Nashville born and raised singer-songwriter Gabe Lee. I first came across Gabe Lee last year when I was sent his debut record, Farmland. It was an instant favorite of the year and one of the best debut records I've heard in quite some time. And what's kind of amazing and frankly surprising is that he didn't really waste any time between album releases. Earlier this March, he released his second record, Honky Tonk Hell. Much like Farmland, Lee's stellar use of old expressions and fresh phrasing are right at the forefront of his songwriting. He's a gifted storyteller who shines a light on these characters that he's interacted with for a brief period of time, and it's not like he's telling their whole life story by any means, but rather just these brief little small vignettes that he's just plucked from their life. The major difference between Farmland and Honky Tonk Hell, though, is the sonic qualities. We talk about it a lot during the interview, but the obvious is that Farmland is essentially an acoustic album, and Honky Tonk Hell sees Lee just progressing forward as an artist. He fully embraces a full band sound on the 11 tracks, and that obviously boosts the songs that were meant to be honky tonkers or country ramblers and what have you. Anyway, Gabe's quickly become one of my favorite songwriters, and if you haven't checked out Farmland or Honky Tonk Hell just yet, I'd highly recommend you do so. Like always, if this is your first time listening to New Slang, please subscribe. New Slang is available on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and a lot of other platforms. Wherever you listen, please hit that subscribe button. And also, if you've been listening to New Slang, go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so just yet. And then, of course, wherever you found this episode of New Slang, go ahead and hit that like or follow button as well. If you haven't listened to Monday's episode, be sure to check that out. It's with Willie Braun of Reckless Kelly. And yeah, I think that just about does it. Let's get on to the interview with Gabe Lee.
Yeah, well, let's just go on and start with that. Is like obviously the storm in Nashville this week or yesterday, obviously shutting down everything due to the coronavirus. Right before that, the tornado, just all of these kind of bad things happening in Nashville. Like, does it feel like, Old Testament style coming back?
Shit, man, I really hope it's not the Old Testament, because if it is, we're fucked. But I think when these kind of things roll around and you're getting battered every which way, it's really the true colors of people come out, and especially on social media now, people are quite vocal and willing to share, and they're bored. They're sitting around. They're ornery, and they need to emote somehow. So, for the most part, I stay out of a lot of the political stuff, but at the same time, I feel like everyone else does, and I really obviously wish that circumstances weren't like this. But starting back at the tornado, I mean the community was really admirable. Just an outpouring of support and love, and really pretty incredible to see when because this city, having just blown up, I guess, and within the past 10 years really spiking, its identity has always sort of been this tourist town. Mm-hmm. And at least for the during the spike. I mean, obviously it's Music City, but you got your bachelorette barges, and you got Lower Broadway, and that's sort of taken over the as a mask for Nashville for outsiders, I think, in a lot of ways. Then when something like this happens, it these true colors, it gives people an opportunity to change, I guess, their outward appearance, and or at least show their inner person and their inner good. So honestly, the tornado, again, I saw a lot of amazing outreach happening for that, and it's still ongoing. But obviously, with the quarantine happening right after that, it puts another damper on things. And I know that for me personally, sitting around the house looking for something to entertain myself with on a day-to-day basis, I consider myself pretty damn lucky. I know that just down the road and worlds away, that there are people who are going through a tough time and having a difficult time of it all the time, not just during a pandemic. There's folks that are in need, and that kind of perspective, I try to I guess assess and weigh that gravity of things all the time. Folks are really trying to get back into the bars, and play gigs, and just get out there and be with their friends again. And I am totally on board with that. But at the same time, I think it's important to weigh these thoughts or weigh the situation, right? And be thinking like, why are we in this situation, and how can we be better for it?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems that I guess like what's been so eye opening for me is realizing that just so many of my friends need that constant human interaction. Like I'm pretty
Yeah.
fine with just being a homebody, and just listening to music and reading and doing stuff on my own. I'm
Yeah.
perfectly fine with that. But then I realize just so many people, this is maddening to them, is feeling in a way kind of useless.
Yeah, and I also that resonates with me as well. I mean, as someone who works 3 or 4 odd jobs, side gigs, along with the music, uh, being in the house all day is not easy. It's not easy, and there's some
Hmm.
people who I like my living situation. I've got my dogs and my roommate and I are chill. Like we're good. I've got nothing to gripe about. Um, and I think the biggest thing, you see some people that are like, oh, I'm never going to take live shows for granted again, or I'm never going to take um, my morning commute for granted ever again, stuff like that. And I'm over here like, man, I'm looking around at just like my living space and being safe and having the resources to weather the storm. I'm like, I'm not going to take any of this for granted. Like I'm not going to take for granted the fact that I wake up like in a safe place, that I have like fucking running water, electricity,
Hmm.
except this morning electricity, but so yeah, but we're we had kind of our situationally for the music, after having just put a record out, probably the worst day of the year, and then sort of getting our tires slashed before we could really hit the road. That was definitely disappointing, but I'm a grown up. Like I understand the circumstances, and luckily our bookers and the venues that we've been talking to, they just want to help, and we're all in the same kind of boat. So uh, they want to make sure that we are able to reschedule, and a lot of it's already taking place. So I'm grateful for that as well.
Hmm. Yeah, I was going to ask about that, is because there's a lot of opinions right now um, about releasing records, pushing back records. Obviously, you put yours out just like right
Yeah,
as this was happening, right on
right,
the I guess right when we fell off the cliff,
right.
essentially. Um, was there any kind of like, oh man, we should have pushed it back? Any thoughts like that, or was it just kind of has it worked out well enough?
Yeah, I mean the way the release came together, it all went as planned, and it went even better, I think, than expected. The actual, I would say, week or two leading up to release, we were able to land several premieres that we really hadn't, that we had just been hoping for. That wasn't in the bag. So that was really encouraging. We added to a Rolling Stone playlist. We got a feature on Bluegrass Situation, and then Billboard. So those kind of all those different, and including all the other
Hmm.
sort of small labels and music reviews and indie reviews that, like yourself, that like to support work that they just listen to on the daily. All of that together, we had a pretty great showing of it for the first, for the first few singles, and then ultimately the record drop. Now, we do we do obviously wish we could be out on the road. It's going to be a great little run. We're going to go through East Tennessee up into the Tri Cities in North Carolina, and then go up to Brooklyn and do some promo with some distribution labels and stuff, and some record shops. And then we're going to go to Texas this summer. So it all would have been really fun, and it would have helped, I think, get our initial streams up. But at the same time, there's, if you look at the other side of it, folks are able to live with this record a little longer. Hopefully, maybe when we get back on the road, we'll get a couple more tickets sold.
Yeah, they'll know the songs and they'll sing along.
Yeah, right, exactly. That's the thing about the streaming. I mean, like I told AT this the other day, that we're not none of the work that he and I are doing with David Dorn, our other producer, is at least for this part of the music, for the Gabe Lee songs, it's it's not a summer hit. It's made to last.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a body of work that will hopefully keep getting better as I progress and sing better and write better and just continue to be more integral part of the Nashville music scene. So that's just the hope, and I think we succeeded that in this record, and it was a blast to cut. And the team that we have together for it, helping market it and distribute it, is just incredible. So really, I honestly think we're in a great spot. The big labels and the big machines, they're having to furlough workers, and I myself, got laid off from my restaurant, which is a corporate restaurant. So AT and I are pretty blessed to say that with a small team, we can still keep producing and be efficient and write and create, despite the fact that most of the country or most of the world's at a standstill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was just thinking about like that, what you're saying in comparison. I guess like the big, quote unquote, the big record that's been pushed back is like the Dixie Chicks record. And I guess like I always thought, they could release it today and there wouldn't be any problems. They could,
Yeah.
But maybe it's more on the logistical side, that aspect
Mm-hmm.
of like, if it's such a big record, you have to, there's probably things that I'm just not thinking about, like the actual making of CDs for Target and Walmart and, stuff like that. That is just, things that like the average person probably doesn't think about.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
with you, it's obviously like if this, or, not just you, but like if it's a smaller, outfit,
Operation.
like, the smaller operation, it's just, that means there's just less hoops to go through essentially to
Totally.
get things done.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I haven't, mostly I've seen, as far as big time artists, like A-list artists that are really, having a tough time of it. I saw on Saving Country that Zach Brown is putting his Southern Ground Studios on the market, which is wild to me because he basically rebuilt that thing from the ground up, and it was an already historic place to begin with. So
Mm-hmm.
you think about artists that are pretty much at the prime of their careers, touring worldwide and having to lay off like everyone but himself and his manager in the band, pretty much,
Right.
Canceling a nationwide tour. I mean, it's everyone's having to take some considerations in this for sure. And obviously, yeah, with a larger operation, it's even more complex. So we're just keeping on. I have pretty good resources to get through this, and I've got my family, in Nashville. I'm from here, so I've got my family here, and they're close by. So that's also comforting, and hopefully by the end of the summer we'll be right again, but we'll see.
Yeah. Like I think people don't realize that. Yeah, like these massive artists who are monetarily just raking in dollars, that also means like they're paying so many more people, that there's like so much more, as much money that's coming in, there's just so much more money being paid out expense wise, and like you'd be just surprised how many people you have to pay, and like even on like what you mentioned with the Zach Brown thing, I mean, I'm sure like that means payments on that, you know what I mean? Like there's all kinds of things that we're just probably not thinking of whenever you become, George Strait or Garth Brooks or whoever.
Well, the your trappings get larger and more demanding, and also more expensive when when your artistry grows. And that's definitely it's I think similar in a lot of ways to a restaurant. A restaurant is always running with like, extra overhead. You're always almost running behind in a restaurant because because it's just a money pit. But and you're constantly resupplying and then working to compensate and make that profit line for everything, alcohol, food, down to the sugar, the salt and the pepper that you buy.
Right.
Um, and having been in restaurants forever, I can empathize not only with I guess the artists, but the local small, not even just small, just the immediate locale in Nashville, in Davidson County. These restaurants that are threatened to never open again, and really essentially fucked. So that's really something to consider, I think, and part of this gravity that I was talking about, just how things are going to change, and how, and again, how we can sort of make better for it, because the change is inevitable. It's already happening, right?
Yeah. I was talking to a buddy about, the restaurant part. I think like that's been probably one of the most eye-opening aspects of this pandemic, is realizing just how, the margins are so close on so many small businesses. And that's kind of been eye-opening in this entire process, and it's not necessarily because I think people are ignorant of that fact, but like just maybe naive or just haven't thought about it, because that's something that never really crossed my mind, really.
Right, right. Yeah, it's just the way I think we're gonna have to deal with it is, I always try to say, be kind and be gracious, because man, folks are dealing with so much. And whether you're running a taco stand, or whether you're running a chain of Qdoba's, like, your shit's getting pushed in right now, and it's not easy. So I really hope, on some level, this continues to bring people together, similar to like we were talking about earlier with the storms in Nashville, uh, and that it doesn't cause more of a row, because so often, I mean, in everything, people want to bicker, and people want to talk shit and point fingers, and yeah, you gotta. I think people have to be held accountable for sure. But all people make mistakes, and yeah, there's assholes out there. You gotta look out for them too. But just in my immediate community, I think that's like something that me and AT and my close friends and my buddies always try and do, is just to make sure that like no one's being overlooked, no one's left behind, and that we're kind of all in this together. Nashville, for me, growing up here, still feels like a small town, and uh, I love looking at it through that lens. And I hope that never changes for me here.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about growing up in Nashville. Like, what was your perspective growing up in, like you mentioned it earlier, like the tourist aspect, or like
Yeah.
the music, kind of the country music center, right?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Like small town, like that's interesting to think of. I guess because like all these little spots, these hidden gems, if you will. Um, has I guess like growing up there, has it been any? Do you feel like you trying to become an artist is any different than somebody who moves there from insert city here?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And uh, I'll start off just right there. I mean, I admire everyone who moves here from wherever they come from, because uh, playing out at these songwriter rounds, the rounds are a big thing in Nashville. You get on stage with like 3 or 4 people, swap songs for about an hour, and you get to know them. The the thing about the Nashville songwriters, you have folks that move here just on a whim. I mean, I can't tell you how many stories I have of bartender buddies, songwriter buddies of mine, who are just like, yeah, I mean, I came here and visited a friend, and I loved it so much that I basically never left. So that takes guts, and that takes being pretty brave, and willing to chase that dream, especially if you're coming here, to write songs. Uh, having grown up here, I'm spoiled. I have this support system and a group of friends that completely outside of the music industry that are basically like family. This is home to me. So the familiarity of everything uh, feels great. We will be playing in Midtown, and um, we'll be surrounded by tourists and stuff. But I went to high school 2 blocks down the street, so that kind of feeling is definitely kind of like a blanket. It makes everything feel a lot more comfortable and familiar and close. Uh, when I was growing up here, the tourist thing wasn't huge. I mean, I didn't notice it. I was just a kid, and I would, like any other kid, be hanging out with my friends and stuff. And then when I got older and started getting into music and stuff, I realized that these friends, that their parents were like, owners of studios and like basically publishers and writers and Grammy nominated, musicians. So the whole lifeblood and the culture of this town is, when you grow up here, it's very much all around you. Everyone here is, it feels like, is somehow connected by some second or third degree at least. I mean, at the most, to music. And it's wonderful. It's awesome, because that really is what makes Music City Music City. It's not necessarily the UMGs and the BMIs. It's not necessarily the big labels that are raking in tons of money and producing these huge pop artists. Although that's undeniably a part of it. There's this just great, I guess, Southern familiarity and hospitality and culture about the actual town and the locals itself that is not fake at all, and it's very, very real. And by some stroke of school, and then um, came to Nashville for jobs. And my brother and I were both born here, and it's home, and it always will be. I've got friends from high school that moved away first chance they got, because they didn't want to be in the music scene or surrounded by the music scene, or maybe their parents were involved and they wanted to get out from under that. But um, I've always told folks that I want to be here the rest of my life. So that culture is for me really, really interesting and really homey and really fun. So I'm all about it.
Yeah, like I guess like a good comparison would be like if you grew up in Las Vegas or something. You know what I mean? Like where everything kind of feels connected to whatever that industry. Where if you're like growing up in like New York City or something, I guess like it's so big and massive that it doesn't matter. It doesn't feel like you're
Right.
really connected necessarily to any specific industry.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
I guess like one of the interesting things, I think you realize that you grow up is you realize that there's like a lot of middle ground in whatever, especially like in music. Um, I guess like when I was little, like I just automatically thought, if you become a musician, an artist, you become Van Halen, you become George Strait, like you know what I mean? Like you end up as that level of success, but there's just so much more depth to it. You know what I mean? Like I even like growing up, I would think that even if they were an indie artist, like you kind of thought of them as, oh, this person has to be living in a mansion in the Hollywood Hills, or whatever the case is.
Shit, I wish.
Yeah, I know.
That would be nice. That'd be nice. I want to live in your world. I want to live in your little fantasy world.
Yeah, well, this is like 10-year-old Thomas Mooney, his mind, not a.
Hell yeah.
uh, I don't know.
Man.
It is just it's interesting to think about, like just there being so much middle ground. There's being, and obviously that means like there's a lot more room for artistry now, even in comparison to 10 years ago, 20 years ago.
This episode is brought to you by the Blue Light Live here in Lubbock, Texas. Obviously, the coronavirus pandemic has had a massive impact on the music industry and on our daily lives at large. The Blue Light has been closed for nearly 2 months now, and if you're like me, you're probably jonesing for some live music, perhaps a Lone Star beer or a round of burn shots from your favorite bartender. If you're truly missing the place, there are 2 things you can do. For starters, Lubbock songwriter Charlie Stout and 49 other songwriters have come together for a 50-song compilation called Monday Night Lights. It's 50 demo-style recordings for $50, where all the proceeds will be going to furloughed bar staff at Blue Light Live. All you have to do is head over to mondaynightlights.com. You'll be getting songs from the likes of Josh Abbott and Wade Bowen and William Clark Green, to up-and-comers like Slade Coulter and Morgan Rutherford, to Blue Light singer-songwriter competition winners like Juliet McConkey, Isaac Hoskins, and Kenneth O'Meara. You'll recognize a whole lot of people on this list, just too many to name right here. Trust me when I say you will want to get Monday Night Lights. It's just an incredible collection of incredible songwriters. There's also some pretty cool limited edition poster prints that Charlie has for sale on the site, where those proceeds will obviously be going to bar staff as well. And we will probably end up having some other cool items listed on mondaynightlights.com as well pretty soon. Again, mondaynightlights.com. We've already raised a good chunk of money so far. We're super proud of how this all came together and proud of how many people have shared the compilation and everything. But as you know, more can always help. And of course, head over to bluelightlubbock.com. Click on the merch tab. They have koozies and t-shirts and caps. I swear, if you put on a Blue Light cap and a t-shirt, it almost feels like you're there if you close your eyes. Especially if you've already thrown on the Monday Night Lights compilation. Okay, back to the episode.
One thing I was going to ask you about is, obviously you released this new record just a couple months ago, or I guess it's been a month back now.
Yeah.
But, Farmland came out like 51 weeks ago. I went ahead and I looked it up because I was like, they're a year apart, but it's not 52 weeks. It's 51 weeks. You put 2 records out within.
In less than a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that always kind of the plan, was to, just get back into the studio and cut another record kind of directly after?
The way we have our Alex's little label set up is that we pretty much have everything we need to cut records, and all the personnel that we use are close buddies, and all these session guys and the producers and the engineers, like they all work very closely. So much that I think it was like 3 weeks ago, I wrote this song called "Talk to You," and AT was like, "I love that. We should put it out. It's perfect for quarantine. It speaks to quarantine." And so he called David in the studio and just said, "Hey, can you let Gabe in the back of the studio while you're there? Because there's no one at the studio." He's like, "Can you let Gabe in the back of the studio into the sound room, and then you can go into the front in the control room because they're not connected." And he was like, "Can you just let him in there for like 30 minutes and you just track him playing that song a couple times, and then we'll just send that to mastering, and I'll send it to the distributors. We'll get it out." And we had it out in 2 weeks. So we have this great little operation where we all work extremely closely, and we can knock out what we need pretty quickly. So when I met AT, this was probably the end of 2018 when I first met him, and he saw me playing out, and he saw me and my dobro player playing like an hour gig at a little dive bar in Nashville, and he was like, "Man, let's just cut that. Like, it's easy, it sounds great, it feels right. Let's just do it." So me and Luciano went to studio, cut 10, 11 songs, and then by the time we had spent a year playing out on it and promoting it, then had another 10, 11 songs ready. So it just happened it just seemed to work out that way. And at this point, I'm kind of a late bloomer. I'm almost 30, and I waited until I was about like 28 to really start playing out solo. So, with these songs I'd written, that would become farmland. So, you know, I had basically a record ready to go, and it made sense after our first kind of test with farmland as a singer songwriter project to say, all right, let's bring in a band and see what we can do, and just put out more music because we can, because it's it doesn't hurt, and it feels right, and the band's there, and we're just gonna give it a shot. So I think on the next one, I'm gonna be on the next record, very likely, next March. I wouldn't be surprised if we were able to get it out by then. And I'm gonna do a lot more. I think I'm gonna live with these songs a lot longer before bringing it to the band. As in, I'm gonna try and arrange them a lot more instead of just go to town, because that's what we did with Honky Tonk Hell. We said we just brought these songs up and we're like, all right, we're gonna put the band on these and like just jam on them and see what happens, and kept the takes we liked, and that's pretty much how Honky Tonk Hell came around. We were able to cut it within like 4 sessions. But on the next, I said I really want to approach it from more of a director's aspect and say, all right, on this song I want more of a Jackson Brown feel. On this song I want more of a Leonard Skinner feel, and be very intentful and purposeful about it.
Yeah, I do love, like, I think sometimes we like to let the what we're supposed to be doing, what the I guess like the business dictates of, like, oh, we need to do this with a record, and we can't put out a record until it's X amount of months after
Yeah,
this. And I think sometimes we let all of that kind of get in the way of actually just letting music come out. And
totally.
like sometimes, like, hey, it's fine to just put another record out.
Yeah, yeah,
um,
absolutely.
like
We're
that's
not
the
scared.
yeah, that's like the at the end of the day, that's what you're wanting to do. So put a damn record out.
Right. And I think, and again, I'm almost 30, and I feel like uh, I'm continuing to just uh, wanting to be better and wanting to improve on the work before. And I have my favorite songwriters and bands that I listen to, that I look to for inspiration, and I'll look at their first to their fifth record and see what kind of progression they made, when they at what point did they say, all right, I'm throwing all the rules out of the window and I'm just gonna do something fucking crazy, like, when's that okay? And how long, how the voice of the writer and the narrator and the characters in the song develop, record to record. So just trying to study that, be a good student of music, and again, we with the freedom that AT provides, being my manager and my producer, it's great. I've got a lot at our disposal, and at my fingertips, and I better cut records before he drops me, So
Yeah, I always love the going back through a catalog of somebody, because yeah, you get so much context. Like sometimes
yeah.
you can, I guess, like right now, since there is Spotify, there is iTunes, you can just grab
Hmm.
like an entire person's catalog.
Yeah.
And sometimes that can be overwhelming, especially like with somebody who has like 40 years in a career. So like there's like,
Yeah.
I guess like what I've always thought about was how like the first time I heard Springsteen, I was just
Mhm.
like listening to a greatest hits, and you're just getting all these different songs from these different eras, these different records, and you kind of like it's hard to comprehend, I guess, the space between those albums.
Yeah.
And it's not until you really go back and listen where you do find the uh, that space between those years. You know what I mean? And that growth
Hmm.
and like the changes. And um, yeah, it's just really interesting to go back and find that, like the nuance of someone's career. Who's been like your uh, I guess maybe like somebody that you've done that with. Like who is there anyone that just jumps out where you're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, this is maybe like the most interesting jumps."
Oh, for sure. I don't know about the most interesting, but I mean, I go back and I have like the entire Jackson Brown discography, and it's just cool to see what happened with rockers, the transition into the '80s,
Mm-hmm.
where everything got a lot more synthy and poppy and disco. So, he'll like. I think "Lawyers in Love" is his '80s record, and it's just ridiculous. Like there's just all these silly sounds, and with his like kind of like SoCal country melodies, it's so weird, but it's fun at the same time. I think more contemporary artists uh, that I love to death and I listen to all the time. Um, Nikki Lane's one of them, and Dawes is another one. So like if you look at Nikki Lane, like she only I think has like two or three. She has three records out, and it's cool to see the jump between those. I think it's from like early 2000s till just a couple years ago. Those three came out, and her first record was definitely like a singer-songwriter feel, and very the writing in it was very gritty and raw and passionate. But the sound was like still a work. And then she had her second album, All or Nothing, which is my favorite one, where she like uh, uh, for lack of a better term, becomes a woman in a lot of ways. Like she starts talking about real issues. She talks about like sex and like, what it's like being a woman, being in love, and dealing with emotions and being a musician. And then I think her last record, she worked with Dan Auerbach here in Nashville, and produced Highway Queen, which has the best commercial success so far. And that's all had like a very similar, um, I guess vibe, all of her music, which is really cool to see because she's got a special sound and she's continuing to chase it. And then you have, I was saying my one of my favorite bands, Dawes, because of their songwriting and the way Taylor Goldsmith tells stories. This is more of a California kind of folk rock kind of vibe. Actually, very similar to Jackson Browne in a lot of ways.
Right.
But they, when they went with oh god, they had their three first records are amazing, and then they put out this record called We're All Gonna Die, which plays a lot with like these really funny, I think, Moog sounds and just crazy synths and loops, and all these folks who are in love with this indie folk storytelling vibe were like just heartbroken, just like crying in the streets, and in an uproar, and being like, man, like just talking shit, on all these forums that everyone has now, like online and whatever, just being like, man, like what happened? And I'm like, dude, do you not think these musicians know what they're doing? Like to have the success that they've had, do you not think they, understand that they're bringing something completely new and that that's completely okay? Um, and I just love that because I know there's like people talk about the sophomore slump or whatever. People someone puts out their first record or second record, it's a hit, they go on tour, they have success, their third and fourth records suck, and like that does happen. But you can't forget that intentionally, musicians are artists and trying to create. And if you're just doing if you're writing the same song over and over again, like you might as well just be part of the pop country like commercial pipeline here in Nashville, writing the same Taylor Swift song over and over.
Yeah. I think like there's obviously people who, if Dylan had just put out, Blonde on Blonde 15
Yeah.
times in a row, they would absolutely have loved it, but yeah, these people they grow, people grow and change. And,
Hmm.
you know, um, it's just, it's one of those things where I hate the idea of like an artist just putting the same record out every couple of years and it just being the same, I guess, even if it's good, or great, it's like, okay, yeah, but I guess we're staying in the same, pocket of ideas. Like, is your life just the same exact thing as it was 10 years ago?
Yeah.
Or,
Right.
uh,
You would hope not, right? You would hope that there's some development. I mean, that's the thing about, for me, artistry that's so important, is that it continues to grow and better itself, whatever that means for each person individually. I think that in Nashville, you're surrounded by, like in Nashville, everyone, it feels like everyone's been on like The Voice, or like an X Factor or American Idol here. You know, like everyone's had a stage and is sort of trying to, or everyone who's been on that stage is sort of trying to get out from under it and do their own thing. It's kind of interesting. And when it comes to that, like I'm just like, great, like you can sing the pants off of Jolene, but you know, can you write a song? Can you tell a story? Um, and and some people can really fucking write, but barely know how to hold a guitar. So like that, the artistry is a mysterious thing, and that's why it's magic when certain things, when records come out that make a difference, or that are a piece of work that hold well, and don't just fizzle out. You know, things that are made to last, and made well with love. So that's what AT and I want to do. You know, we're not making, it's not necessarily country music, and he'll tell you this. He just wants to make good music. You know, he just wants to make music that he would listen to in his own car driving around town. And that's why what we have, and the trust that we have, works so great. You look at the other writers he has, or the other artists, you know, Tristan Mears, Jamie Lynn Wilson, uh, the late great Kylie Ray Harris, and they all just had their own thing, and and he, you know, we trusted each other. We trust each other so much. You know, that relationship between artist and manager is really important, because the manager has all the say, for the most part. It really does, has all this clout, but it doesn't feel like that with AT. It feels like, you know, it feels like he's holding you up. You know, not pulling you along. So it's a good thing we got.
Yeah, yeah. I think the term you're looking for, not country, but indigo, is the
Yeah, yeah. The Indigo. I saw that. I saw. Was it Rolling Stone or Spotify put out an Indigo playlist?
yeah. Spotify did, yeah.
Yeah, that's funny, man. Because I saw someone who tweeted. Was it Isabel? Someone tweeted that it was. They were like, oh shit. I wonder what Tyler thinks of his face being on the cover of the Indigo playlist, because you know Tyler Childers and Sturgill are like, it's country, god damn it. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah. Well, like they've
Uh,
been updating it, and uh, like
oh,
right
good.
now, Willie Nelson's on it. Was on the
Okay.
cover, and I was like, if there's one person who's still alive who is like country
Yeah.
fucking music, it's Willie Nelson. Like, why do we have to? And I think that's like one of those things. Um, if Willie Nelson is being pushed out of of a genre that he helped, really create, really mold, has his fingerprints all over, then maybe like we need to like reassess. It's like
Absolutely.
I have no
Yeah.
problem with people listening to bad music, um, or like music that I just don't like. That's I guess where part of my thing is like it. Sometimes it's just too exhausting to care about like that kind of stuff. But also at the same time, there is a little bit of there's some history here, and maybe like at the end of the day, like does bro country really affect me? No, but like also at the same time, like maybe we should like um let like classic country artists who would be considered country in the 70s or the 60s or whatever, maybe they should like still be allowed to have their space on the platform. That's
Man, it's tough, because I have this conversation with folks all the time. You know, it's bizarre that you look at any other genre, right? Like, you know, jazz, rock, bluegrass, um, whatever. You look at other genres, and the contemporary stuff lives right next to the stuff that was, you know, the same genre 20, 30, 40 years ago. Like, it all makes sense. It's all very congruent, um, and you know, it's part of a family. And then you look at country music, and what's, you know, coming out on the radio as country, and it's nothing like, you know, nothing like Willie, and nothing like what was coming out of Nashville 40 years ago. So that's absolutely the question. Like, why the birth of all these subgenres? And not that Americana is uncool. Like Americana's home for some amazing shit. Like Jason Isbell. Like Jason Isbell, he's a rocker, and I love that most of his records, I think, on iTunes are put out as rock or singer-songwriter.
Mm-hmm.
But Americana eats that shit up. Like they call him the king of Americana. And with but when you're and I actually spoke with AT about this recently concerning the next record. I was like, man, I think what we're working on, with the sound that's developing, is more than country. And I was like, there's blues, there's soul, there's like, country western, there's southern rock in it all, and there's some Paul Simon in it, whatever you want to call that, like folk, and should we be marketing it? This is really important. Should we be marketing it as country and putting it out as a country record? Because when you do that, you put yourself up against, the Brad Paisleys and the Luke Bryans and the Sam Hunts on these playlists and on sales sheets. So like, how do you get the most visibility with your music? Sure, like if you've got country influences, that's awesome. If you want to put it out as a country record, I say fucking do it. But that's just the reality that we're coming up against is, how do you fight these giants that are just that have a monopoly on the top 20? Like in Honky Tonk Hell, when we put it out, it got up into the top 25 for the first week for records on iTunes country charts, and then a week later it was down, in a black hole somewhere. So that situation is aggravating, because like Tyler Childers and like Sturgill, like we like to think that we're putting out country records, but now I'm starting to think, maybe it's not necessarily an issue of maybe there's a way to, I think, avoid that clash and say, not giving up on the genre, but just understanding that to get the music to more people and the people that we want listening to it, the people that are going to love it and appreciate it, which is not the folks who listen to top 40 country radio right now, would be to maybe pursue a singer-songwriter release or a rock release or even straight up Americana release. And it's kind of weird to think about that, but it's definitely something we've been playing with and discussing.
Yeah, I think like the biggest problem with Americana is that it's just had bad branding, and it's just like the term is just so bland. If there was like, I don't know,
it's so lame.
I don't know if necessarily know if indigo is the right term either, but Americana just sounds so dated. It sounds just, I don't know.
But you look at the folks like the folks on this Indigo playlist, like they're all storytellers, man. They're all great songwriters. Like for the most part, like Brandy Clark, Aaron Anderlin, Justin Towns, Earl, like this. Right. It's a killer playlist.
Yeah,
I listen to this shit. This kind of stuff, like I listen to, and it inspires me, and I hope it inspires other people, and I think it does. But to be wrestling with where it lives and how it should be branded is definitely confusing. I would like to think that 90% of it is just country, but it's hard.
This episode is sponsored by Smith Iron and Design. It's owned and operated by one of my good friends, Aaron Smith, and his dad, Sonny. As the name implies, Smith Iron and Design specializes in creating custom metal and woodwork. They have a vast array of metal signs that are perfect wall decor that'll tie a room together. They design everything from welcome signs to family crests, flags, and Texas cutouts. They have a series of these metal wreaths that are perfect for your front door, and you are able to change them out depending on the season. Are you a sports fan? Well, there's nothing better than having a giant logo of your team on the wall of your den or office. When it comes to signage, the possibilities are really endless. What you should really do, though, is head over to smithironanddesign.com to get a look at their vast portfolio. That's smithironanddesign.com. I'll throw a link into the show notes as well. They don't just do signs either. Some of the smaller items are custom bottle openers and keychains. Then they also have bookshelves, TV stands, nightstands, and fire pits. You know, it was about a year ago, Aaron built me a custom shelf. I needed something new to store some of my vinyl, and everything I had come across, either the shelves weren't big enough for LPs, or it looked too bland or cheaply made, or, to be perfectly honest, too expensive. So I wound up talking with Aaron, and about a week later, I was able to pick up this custom shelf unit that's just been amazing. It's incredibly sturdy, has a bit of a rustic feel. In my opinion, one of the best parts was just having so much control in the process. You can get them as tall as you want with the shelves at the perfect depth and length. Again, for me, this was for storing vinyl, so they had to be a certain height and depth. I've been thinking about getting a custom bookshelf companion piece soon as well. Now, for the most part, they primarily serve the Lubbock area and the South Plains, but for some of their smaller pieces, they're able to ship nationwide as well. Again, smithironanddesign.com. Now back to the show.
I really love what Brent Cobb is doing. I don't know if you listen to Brent Cobb a lot, but he's just like this. He's been in Nashville for a while now, and he started at a Walgreens and has a great story, and just started writing in a publishing company, and ultimately got all the resources and the backing he needed to cut his own records, and it's killer. He's as good as anyone else, and I don't think he gets enough recognition, but he's definitely touted as one of the best songwriters in this town, and not only by folks who love indigo or Americana or whatever this new subgenre of country is, but also by commercial writers. Commercial writers see him as a beast, and he's had great cuts. So folks like that who aren't just militant, or adamantly on one side of the line or the other, who can bridge that gap and who can draw a line between the two and do a great job of doing it, and without sacrificing any ideals. Like that is what I'm going for, man.
Yeah, I do love Brent Cobb. He, I guess like the first time I came across him was him and he had like a cut on a Andrew Combs record.
Yeah.
And I can't remember what it was. It's like Shine On. Is it Shine On Ready Day? I think that came in.
That sounds really familiar.
Anyways, yeah, that's the first time I heard him was seeing him as a co-writer of that Andrew Combs song, and then not long after, like I realized he had been doing some co-writes and writes with Whiskey Myers on that.
Yeah.
I guess like that first record that Brent Cobb or Dave Cobb produced, and yeah, he's got like such a great way to turn a phrase. That's something like obviously that you're really great at, is like using these really great expressions and idioms and phrases to I don't know, make a song a little bit brighter. I always like that kind of songwriting. For you, like where do these come from? Or do you have like a I'm assuming a lot of them come from just hearing them out in the wild. But like, do you then like, how do you put them down? Do you make sure to always put it in a note, or is it just something that you just kind of are able to file away in your mind and then pull it back later?
I think it's a little bit of both. When you're I like I said, I work in the restaurant, which is a pretty colorful industry, and it's also very entertaining. As a bartender, I mean, all the folks you meet, everyone's got a different story to tell. So I like to think that that whatever the lifeblood of this town is just swimming with awesome stories and talent and inspiration. You just got to soak it up. So at times I'll if I think of a little hook or a little melody that goes along with a couple words, there's nothing more convenient nowadays than a little voice memo, and and that saves the day, and I can go work on that later. A lot of times, though, if that does come around, I'll if I sit down with it and I'm struggling with it, and it takes me a couple writes to even formulate any direction on it, I'll just let it sit. I'll let it sit for weeks, months, a year if I have to. And sometimes it'll completely disintegrate, and sometimes it'll come back and be great in its own song. Or sometimes I'll just recycle it and it'll be like some side imagery, some little nuanced imagery in another song down the line. So the inspiration for me, I mean, has been a lot through literature. I read a ton, and I read a lot of short stories, which for me are like tracks on a record, and because you have limited space to talk things through and to share emotions and stuff. So I read a lot of Ron Rash. I think he's an author out of South Carolina, and he's just a phenomenal writer. So that, among other things that I am constantly rereading, or even movies and stuff. Those kind of medium, real, just are good for inspiration. So uh, yeah, my process is pretty solitary. I think you said you're fine with being on your own for the most part, and I am too. Working out at bars and stuff, it's pretty demanding. You're running around, it's loud, and you're constantly being exposed to tons of people, and then when I get home, late at night after a late shift, it's one of the ways I unwind is sit down with the guitar and just pluck around for a little bit. Nashville's a big co-writing town, and I've only done about 4 or 5 co-writes, um, and it's kind of it's odd, uh, that culture to me, because I'll play a song, I'll play a round in Midtown somewhere, and I'll get off stage and I'll go to the bar, and then someone will come up and shake my hand and say, "Hey, that sounded great. What are you doing next week? Let's write." And
Yeah.
I'm just like, man, I'm like, maybe you should buy me a beer first. Like, I don't even know you, man.
Yeah.
And I kind of the old, the old ornery, like, miser in me is like, man, just like, get off my lawn. Like, I don't know you, and I don't know that I would. You maybe you're great, but I don't know if I'd sit down and write a song with you. And so, but some people would make a living doing that. Some people just, they write like 3 times a day with 3 different people, and sometimes they get a hit, and uh, that's also how dreams are made. So to each his own.
Yeah. The I guess like talking with songwriters over time, obviously it's one of those things where, yeah, great songwriters are typically readers. Um, but I do think there is something about a lot of songwriters I realize are short story readers. Um,
Mm. I'm
and
I'm surprised. I hadn't heard that from many of my friends. Like, they don't read very much, um, and I'm actually glad to hear you say that.
hmm well, I'm thinking of like a couple of buddies right now, like Johnny Burke and Evan Felker. Whenever I've talked with them about stuff, it's almost always your your classic writers, but like their short story collections, like the Hemingway short stories or the Faulkner short stories, or
Yeah.
um, like even what's his name, um, another guy, I guess like Ben Nichols of Lucero. He's big into the short stories of like Larry Brown and Tim O'Brien.
Very cool.
Yeah,
Oh,
so like
yeah, 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 yeah. I I
like
love
the
I
that
love Tim
Southern lit
O'Brien.
kind of thing. Yeah. Um, I don't know. Like I don't know if it's because it is that very there's that connection of it being short. Like you saying you have to pack something into a song, right? You packing it into 5 minutes or whatever the case is, 4 minutes, 3 minutes. Um, if there's a connection with that of like how you have to kind of get to the point, if there's or what, but I've noticed that there has been some people who mention like not just being readers, but a fan of short story writing. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's so cool when the way that these authors with short stories, get the point across, and at times well, obviously with a novel you have 400 pages, in a short story you only have like 5. So I just love the way that writers have to be when you're tackling a short story. You just have to be, man, more concise with your and more oh man, what's the term? They're just more adept with your imagery and your language. You don't have as much space to work with, but that's okay. That's the whole point. And then sometimes you don't have to have closure. Um,
Yeah.
you can start. A short story doesn't often start with Timmy was born on the 14th of August, on this day, blah blah blah, and then like it's just like bam, like suddenly you're in this person's mind. You suddenly wake up and you're there.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end, it's so great. Like some of the best short stories end with a cliffhanger. You're just like, holy shit, what happened? Like, um, uh, and that feeling is just so powerful. The feeling that a few words and a few pages can give you. Like I've read some of my favorite novels. Yeah, they're life changing, and I'll read them. I'll read them and then put them down for like 2 years, and I'll come back and reread them again because like you see something new in them every time, and you mature with them, and you understand more from them every time. But a short story is like that, like immediate sort of gratification for me when it comes to um, I guess just the crafting words to elicit emotions and feelings from an audience, and it's great, man. Like it's one of my favorite things to do. Just like sit down at a coffee shop and crush a bunch of short stories. Um, it's a good way, I think, to sort of get the to sort of like grease the wheels in your mind and get them turning and say like, okay, what ideas uh, what ideas can I be playing with, or what colors do I want to project on some of my next work. So yeah, I'm constantly reading, and I tell all my friends, like songwriters and just other buddies alike, I'm just like, read, it's good for you. But most of them tell me to fuck off.
What I always love about short stories or just reading in general is, and I'm sure you know exactly what I'm talking about with this is reading for pleasure, getting what something out of the story, but then also I love reading, um, examining the language, the way the story was told. There's there's something um, special about that, about like I mean, like the easiest comparisons is, like Hemingway being really short sentences and then Faulkner being super long,
Oh God, yeah,
dragging on paragraphs, Uh,
totally.
I love like just examining that kind of stuff, like the way you use language to tell a story.
Yeah, that's the thing is like with literature, uh, you don't have the you don't have the trappings and the dressings of a band and a pedal steel and great production. It's just words on a page, man. Like so there's a reason that it's revered and that it's an art form. I mean, for me, because and I mostly read like Southern lit fiction myself. So and I'm just getting into uh, like um, like autobiographies, songwriter autobiographies that my friends have gifted me, and are like, you have to read this. So, for instance, I'm just getting into Testimony, which is the Robbie Robertson uh, autobio, and it's pretty freaking great, man. He's, obviously a great, one of the greatest, and one of the greatest rock bands of all time, but just is a great, eloquent writer on a page, which for me, like I, I don't expect that. I mean, I would assume that I know that he's great with words, but then when I sit down and read a page, like, cause it's not like writing a song. I mean, at least not for me. I've tried to, like in my day, or sitting at a computer and typing out like essays or research papers. I mean, it's not fiction, but it's completely different, I guess, medium. But um, that writing on a page is so different from writing with melody and stuff. So uh, it's so cool halfway through the book now. It's just so cool, because he's got stories. He's got some stories to tell, and he does a great job of doing it on paper. I've been really glad that my friend suggested that for me so far. And I think that's kind of like the marriage of the two things we're talking about. Like musicianship, and that kind of craft versus literature. And this specific autobiography is killer for me. So again, it's just, for me, it's about being a student. Like just trying to seeing what you can learn and what you can absorb to be better and add to your craft. Because like that's something it's not hard to do. At least not for me. It's not hard for me to sort of apply that, just to my everyday. Just try and learn something new every day and be better. Never think you've reached your ceiling.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, for sure. I've not read that book yet. I need to check it out. The
Yeah, Testimony. It's good.
I can see him definitely being a great writer, just simply because of I'm basing this totally off of just watching The Next Waltz 100 times.
Okay.
He
Yeah,
is
yeah,
like
Last Waltz is
so fucking, I guess, like perfect in that kind of thing. Like
Yeah.
the long monologue interview kind of shit. Him just
I
being
don't know how they remember half the shit they did. I mean, just you think about all the, illicit substances that, they were partying on. And like, I'm just like, how do you remember like the color of the car you were parked next to in the gas station, like outside of some motel, in
yeah.
Iowa? Like, how do you recall that? It's pretty incredible.
Yeah. I don't know. I wonder if I was thinking, if I was doing it, um, I would have to like reference photos a whole bunch, because like I
Totally.
guess like that would maybe spark the memory better. Make sure you get the details right. And of course there
Yeah, it's a
is
good
like
point.
this aspect of them just like being totally wrong. Like
They're just making shit up.
yeah.
That's what I'm gonna start doing. Like, I'm just gonna start just making up these ridiculous stories about tour, and hopefully people believe me, even though I haven't been on tour.
um, Going back to the co-writing thing, um, I guess like like a lot of that there's just like a different part of the brain, because like you're right, like there are people who are able to just, that's kind of their thing, they can just do, and they're able to, I don't know, like I guess work with people. It sounds bad, but it sounds like they're they're just able to work with somebody to get whatever point they're trying to do. Where in my opinion, if I was a songwriter, I would probably be more of a solo person, just simply because of the control aspect. Like you have just so much more control in what.
There's definitely sharks, in co-writing. Fo- folks who just are there to sort of take your best idea and run with it. I mean, yeah, there's folks that will just take over complete control of the session, which happens. I mean, it happens in everything you do. That's just their personality. And when you write enough, I guess when you co-write enough, you're going to run to all types. So I think that's what I'm trying to avoid. I'm trying to avoid just being in a room with, because man, that just like, I don't know. I mean, just like being in a room with someone who treats the songwriting that way, for me is like, just, I don't, kind of distasteful, and kind of just like, leaves me in a bad mood, I guess. So uh, when people ask me to co-write, I'll almost always say, look, I am more than happy to jam. If we can get some piano in the room, like, and you want to write with like three other people, I will just be back there, writing riffs on the piano, and trying to keep that expectation sort of low and casual, because yeah, there's a lot of pressure in these writes. I mean, some of these writers with publishing deals, they have to submit like 5 songs a week,
Mm-hmm.
and that's, and just to keep their their stipend, aka loan, that they're gonna have to pay back if they don't get anything cut. So those kind of deals are can lead to great success. But I'm not going to put myself in an environment where I have homework when it comes to songwriting, and where I have to turn it in, at the end of every week. Um, like I said, some of the songs I write might take a year to flesh out, and then sometimes I'll write a song on lunch break. So it's really hard for me to look at the writing process and that through that lens, and feel comfortable and productive and gratified from it, because that's why I write, is to be in that mind space, to feel comfortable, to feel safe, and to wrestle with these thoughts like in a healthy way. So then again, there's some great co-writers out there, like my buddy Vinny, who I wrote Babylon with. Like, he's a great guitar player, great singer, so and really easygoing. So he'll walk into any session with pretty much anyone, and probably come away with something pretty good and feeling good. And that's like one of his best traits. So it really is, it is to each his own. It's just, I just think that that part of the industry for me, uh, as um, as the writer that I am, feels invasive. I don't want to share my stuff.
Hmm.
I want to keep it to myself.
Yeah.
Um, now, now you do have opportunities for great co-writes that, like we got offered that co-write with Marcus King, and I was like, I'd be an idiot to say no to that. So
Yeah.
we definitely said yes to that, and it was great. It was a great afternoon, a couple of hours. Marcus and I just hanging and riffing and working on some stuff. So it was a blast, and I won't ever forget it. So like that was a great situation of an awesome co-write. But uh, again, that for me, even doing that, even going into that, I have reservations about, like, oh man, like, and not just because it's guitar god Marcus King. It's like, oh, I just like, you have your expectations going into it, right? You want to have something good. Everyone does, but there's a chance that you won't have anything, which happens a lot too, and you just got to be okay with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Obviously, that went really well. I mean, it's not just the record on the record, but it's obviously the title track. Um,
Yeah.
One of the things I love about that song, and I love when artists will do this, is the self reference. You know, you mention yourself by name. I guess, like, how did that line come across or come up? What was
I,
the?
man, so I had about, when I was traveling at the time when we booked the right. So I was on my way back to the States, and I was working up this structure of Honky Tonk Hell to pitch to Marcus when we got in the room together. And I didn't even have the term Honky Tonk Hell written, but when we came to the last verse, I was like, I'm trying to play with this idea of being in the Devil's Saloon, um and uh and then start talking about Broadway, and how there's a Florida Georgia Line bar, how there's a Luke Bryan bar, there's a whatever, and
Kid Rock, right?
he, yeah, yeah, pretty much everyone now, man. And he's like, yeah, it's kind of like a Honky Tonk Hell, and we just took that and ran with it. And uh, I think the line that folks uh, or will make a fuss about is the line about the people the people in the people in Nashville writing phony ass country songs. And sure, yeah, this definitely shots fired. I'm not going to deny that. But if you keep listening, like, I'm there too. I'm in hell with you.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm better than it. I'm better than you. I am sitting right there at the bar, in Honky Tonk Hell with you, having a drink. And I think that's the point where I was like, I'm going to throw my own name in there, and whether it's me, or just this impression or character of me in the song, it's just a way to say, again, what I just said. Like, we're all in Honky Tonk Hell. It's okay, and it's not. I don't know if it's going to all be all right, but at least I'm sitting here and acknowledging that, that it's not like anyone's better than the other or at fault. Um, and I think that swagger and that attitude and that sort of lightheartedness to a lot of the record was is really one of the capstones of it. It's just the enthusiasm for the songwriting, feeling like I can let a little more out than I had before in the austere, sort of super lit, inspired, poetic writing of Farmland. And I think some of it carried through, which is great for listeners who wanted to, who fell in love, I guess, with the sound and the voice of the songwriting in that first record. And then coming around to the second one, throwing a bunch of electric guitars and B3 organ on it. I know it was a lot to probably take in for some folks, but if you listen, like a lot of the songs, even the loud ones like Honky Tonk Hell and All Dogs Go to Heaven and Susanna, like they're still telling stories if you listen.
Yeah, yeah. I do love that though. Like I'm here with you guys. It's kind of like like the Kanye West line about like, I'm just the first to admit it. Like just about being an asshole.
Yeah,
Like there is an aspect of that of like, you guys
that's great.
are the
Yeah.
pretending to be holier than thou, and at least
Yeah.
admit it.
Yeah, we're all on the same sinking ship. It's okay.
Yeah. One of the things I notice on both records that you do is you kind of leave both albums with a farewell of ways, a goodbye.
Yeah.
Obviously, like that's on purpose, but like, what was um, was there ever like, I guess, was it one of those things where you ended up doing that on the first record, so you decided like, hey, this song needs to be right here as well?
Yeah, yeah. It kind of felt right. I mean, and I did. Happy Trails on the first record was definitely. I think it was one of the first songs I probably written in that collection of songs. So um, it wasn't like a chronological thing or anything. I just, it just made sense. And as a listener, I like that. I like that thematically as a listener myself. Just having the having the farewell at the end. And Blue Ridge Goodbye. Blue Ridge Goodbye, I've been working on for quite a while, but it didn't really take shape until closer to when we cut. And uh, part of me was writing to Kylie Ray in a lot of ways. It was just like, uh, man, what a short, fleeting, wonderful time we had is basically what the first verse is saying. But now it's all got to come to an end. But hopefully, I'll see you again. And just trying to be like, as comforting and sweet and loving as I can as a writer. So that's definitely one of my favorite songs. I think on the record, the pedal steel just sings on it and really makes it. And it's like another melody line. It's like its own voice. And a lot of the record. So the farewell at the end of it, might seem a little corny, but I don't know a better place to put a goodbye song. So
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, like she has some harmonies on this record, um, and obviously you guys were, uh, I guess, like not just tour or like not tour, but like label, if you
label
will,
mates, yeah,
mates, if you
yeah.
will. Did you guys ever co-write anything? Did you guys ever try any of that kind of thing?
We didn't. No, we didn't. I don't. Yeah, we never had really an opportunity to sit down and write songs together. Well, she was in Nashville a lot, but spent most of her time in Texas. And coming through Nashville, we'd
Mm-hmm.
get her on the revival stage a lot, which is a songwriter night that I play at. And we'd get her up there every once in a while when she came through. We never had a ride set up, but we did spend a good amount of time in the studio together. Her coming in and cutting some stuff, and me dropping in when they were cutting stuff, just to say hi and see what they were working on, because I was a big fan of her latest record. And it was. Yeah, just alluding back to the fact that the little operation we have going on here with AT is a little family, because it's not too big, and we're all really respectful and fans of each other's work. Carson Jeffrey, one of the newest guys on, Tristan Mares, and then Jamie Lynn Wilson, obviously is like a folk hero in Texas, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of connection is something that I definitely I would never take for granted. I've got a great you know uh, home base of friends here in Nashville that I grew up with, but I also have met all this awesome community of songwriters and music people in town after starting to play out more. And then I know how important it is and what it means to have a connection with folks um, that are like minded and really form a team. So uh, I just I'm just all about that family aspect and treating others in your family with that same kind of respect. So uh, we'll definitely always miss Kylie, but as At said, like you just gotta raise one up for your fallen comrade and keep going and doing your own thing because that's what they would want, and um, that's what we've done. So she was we kept a bunch of her BGVs on the record because it turned out great, and they brought a lot of like soul to it, which we were really happy about, and we're hopefully her and her family and her kid and everyone's um, gonna be all right. I know it's not easy, and I remember the day At called me about it, and it's just tragic, but yeah, we're as musicians and songwriters, we have the ability to channel those feelings into songs and stuff. A lot of people don't have that outlet. A lot of people struggle with those emotions another way. As songwriters, being inspired and staying inspired is part of our job. So uh, that's probably the best I can do for that. You know.
Yeah, yeah. There's definitely, that's for songwriters or writers in general, artists. You write, you paint, you sculpt, whatever that is. Um, no matter what the inspiration is, and it's everyone else uses that to get past whatever hardships they have. That's absolutely right. Because most people they don't have the outlet to for something to say what they mean. So anyways,
Absolutely, yeah. Staying inspired, so to keep others inspired.
hmm absolutely. So yeah, it's been really really great talking with you here. I think we're running at right about an hour 15 here. So
Not
um,
bad.
yeah, it's been real great talking with you. We'll have to do it again sometime soon.
All right, thanks for listening to New Slang. Be sure to check out Gabe Lee's Farmland and Honky Tonk Hell. Go check out episode sponsors Smith Iron and Design, The Blue Light Live, and MondayNightLights.com. I'll see y'all next week.